Despite pressure from the international community, Iran says it's going to move forward with plans to enrich more uranium, a move seen by many world leaders as the last straw in a series of defiant actions by Iran.
Enrich uranium.
Uranium enrichment.
Uranium enrichment.
The United Nations Security Council voted for sanctions against Iran earlier in the week. The resolution extended punitive measures against Iran over its protracted refusal to suspend sensitive uranium enrichment activity and open up to UN nuclear inspectors.
Will those against please raise their hand? Are there any abstentions? Please raise your hand. Thank you very much. The result of the voting is as follows. 12 votes in favor, 2 votes against, 1 abstention. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 1929 of 2010.
Within the past couple of months, 2 United Nations inspectors were not allowed into Iran to inspect its nuclear facilities. Ali Akbar Salehi accused the United Nations inspectors, saying that in the past these officials have made false reports and accusations against the Iranian nuclear program.
Despite consistent and long-standing demands by the international community, Iran has not suspended its uranium enrichment and other proliferation-related activities.
For years, the Iranian government has failed to live up to its obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Iran concealed a nuclear enrichment facility in Qom that raised serious questions about the nature of its program.
Susan Rice, the ambassador, warned of secret underground facilities that Iran has disclosed. It will depend on Iran's level of cooperation.
Their actions have been deeply troubling.
Is Iran really trying to enrich uranium for the purpose of building nuclear warheads? Creating these types of weapons could only worsen the situation in the Middle East. Fewer countries would want to trade with them, knowing that they built these weapons disregarding the sanctions of the United Nations and opinions of powerful countries around the world. Many believe that the situation is being hyped up and that Iran is just trying to increase its technology in nuclear reactors to produce more energy. Iranians argue that the Western countries are just trying to stop their growth and place more sanctions on them.
People in Iran also denounce the sanctions and believe they won't be able to stop their country from moving forward.
Sanctions will not affect us whatsoever. So far they have passed 4th round of sanctions.
Our progression is increasing day to day. Our nuclear scientists are continuing their activities, and God willing, they will move forward in all fields.
Iran has now is uranium, 3% enriched uranium. They're taking that up to 20% enrichment, as they claim is for their medical nuclear medicine purposes. Also, 20% is what's used for nuclear reactor for the power purposes. You need 90% enriched uranium to create a nuclear weapon. So all this, these complaints from the Western countries about Iran striving for a nuclear weapon, I think is just hyping the situation.
These sanctions, which will freeze assets of various officials and 15 companies connected to the nuclear program, could have an awful effect on the economy of Iran. It could also hurt the economy of those countries that are dependent on the crude oils exported from Iran. Iran is the 5th largest crude oil exporter in the world. They are also China's 3rd largest supplier.
There has been a plethora of reactions to the sanctions against Iran around the world. Brazil's President Lula da Silva has criticized the approval of the resolution as a mistake. And Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has condemned the Security Council resolution in the strongest possible words.
Why doesn't the Security Council sanction Israel? You realize the cynicism of the US and its allies in the world? Israel massacres and murders don't fulfill United Nations resolutions.
But the sanctions have been received differently by the US and its allies, including Israel.
We were very pleased by the action in the Security Council. These were the most significant sanctions that...
In a quote found in the Washington Post, Hillary Clinton said, "We think that the sanctions send a kind of message to the entire Iranian leadership, which is quite diverse in their assessments and reactions, that there is still an opportunity for you to participate and to work with us." The Post also said, "The reactions will reinforce a range of existing economic, high technology, and military sanctions against Iran, encourage states to pursue Iranian vessels suspected of transporting banned materials, and strengthen the United Nations' capacity to monitor enforcement."
On the eve of crucial negotiations about its nuclear program, Iran has succeeded in speeding up production of enriched uranium. According to U.S. intelligence officials, the enrichment is at low levels, well short of bomb-grade uranium.
Once again, the question arises, is Iran really aiming at producing 90% military-grade enriched uranium? I'll leave that for you to decide.
This is not just a U.S. position. The biggest concern is not simply that Iran can threaten us or our allies like Israel or its neighbors in the region. A very real concern is that Iran possessing a nuclear weapon triggers an arms race in the region, and suddenly countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Turkey all feel obliged to get nuclear weapons. And if you've got the most volatile region in the world and everybody armed to the teeth with nuclear weapons, you've got a recipe for potential disaster.